does she think she is, going out all day and neglecting her responsibilities at home?"
The whole house resounded with the yelling of Emma, my son Michael's wife. I widened my eyes in shock. I had told everyone days ago that I was going to a reunion today, and before I left, I had completed all the house chores, so I didn't see why she had the right to say anything about it. I had tolerated Emma all this time for Michael's sake, but I'd finally had enough. Without even realizing it, I shouted back at her, louder than I ever had. As expected, Emma turned the tables and started throwing insults at me.
"An old woman living off of retirement money? How pathetic. If you want me to cut you off, I'll gladly do it."
I took a deep breath. "Sure, thank you." I stormed out of the house knowing I'd finally had enough. After enduring her disrespect for so long, Emma finally fell into her own trap. My name is Mary. I'm 65 years old. Currently, I live with my husband, Tom, and my only son, Michael. I used to be quite a people pleaser, always worrying about what others thought, but that changed when I met Tom. Tom and I met back in college through a club we both joined. I wasn't really into the club, but a friend dragged me along anyway. And there was Tom, right at the center of everything, leading the group. He noticed me on the sidelines and came over, inviting me to join. Because of him, I was able to have a good time. Tom was the kind of person who took on any responsibility nobody else wanted, so he naturally became the person everyone trusted and looked up to. I remember thinking how much easier life would be if I could be more like him, and it didn't take long before I started developing feelings for him. But I didn't think he'd ever be interested in someone like me. Besides, I had never even been in a relationship before. All I could do was admire him from afar. Then, as graduation approached, something amazing happened. Tom asked me out for coffee. I couldn't believe it. It was like a dream. We went out for coffee several times, and eventually we started dating officially. I was over the moon. Then a few years after we'd started working, Tom proposed to me.
"I'm going to make you the happiest woman in the world."
Of course, I happily accepted. And just like that, Tom and I became husband and wife. I thought I was set for a life filled with happiness. Shortly after, Michael was born, and I decided to quit my job to raise him. Life was wonderful. I felt like I was living in a dream. But things started changing once Michael was born. Michael was a fussy baby, crying all day and night. No matter how I tried to soothe him, he'd start crying as soon as I set him down. As much as I loved him, the endless crying started to wear on me. I was constantly exhausted, both physically and mentally. Meanwhile, Tom was always too busy with work to help out. Even though I wished he'd help, I couldn't ask much from him since he was working hard to support us. So I ended up handling all the housework and childcare on my own. One day, though, Tom came home looking angry.
"I quit my job. I couldn't work under that boss another day."
I was stunned, and my mind started racing. How were we supposed to live with a newborn baby and no income? Tom must have noticed the worry on my face as his tone softened.
"Don't worry. I'll find another job soon."
His words reassured me, and I relaxed a bit, but days turned into weeks, and still, Tom didn't look for a job. Instead, he spent his days glued to the TV. Of course, he still didn't lift a finger to help with the house or with Michael. Our savings were running out, and I was starting to panic. I knew I had to say something, so I gathered my courage. I waited until he was in a good mood and gently asked him, "If you don't start working soon, we're going to run out of money." I thought I said it in a neutral way, but Tom's face twisted in anger. He muttered something under his breath and stormed out of the house. But I heard him loud and clear.
"If you need money so bad, why don't you get a job?"
I couldn't believe he would say that. He knew I couldn't work because Michael still needed constant attention. The kind, supportive man I'd married seemed to have disappeared. More than anger, I just felt disappointed. After a while, Tom came back, apologizing and saying he'd try harder. He admitted he'd been too relaxed and promised to change. Relieved, I decided to believe him. 3 years passed, and Michael was now 3 years old. He had finally outgrown the constant crying, and I felt like I could breathe again. But I was juggling multiple part-time jobs by then, and the exhaustion was overwhelming. Since Tom never stuck with any job for long, I had no choice but to take on more work. Even so, I kept hoping he would eventually change, and we'd find peace. But nothing changed, and the years rolled by. Michael grew up and became a teenager while I continued working nonstop. And Tom, he quit yet another job just last week.
That place was a joke. It's not worth working there.
He always seemed to think he was in the right. I was too exhausted to argue, but I noticed Michael giving me a look of understanding.
I'm never going to be like Dad. I'll work hard and take care of you one day.
Michael's words gave me strength. He studied hard every day, and his grades showed it. He became a top student and eventually got into a prestigious high school. But even then, money was tight. No matter how much I worked, it was barely enough. Then one day, Michael came to me.
I'm thinking of working after high school.
I couldn't imagine him giving up his dreams because of money. We had several conversations, but his mind was set.
If I don't help, you'll wear yourself out. Let me take over.
His smile warmed my heart, but I also felt a deep sadness. I knew he had dreams, and I felt guilty for the sacrifice he was willing to make. Meanwhile, Tom continued to lie around scrolling through his phone. It was as if he didn't care about his own child. My distrust in him only grew deeper. Michael graduated and started working at a local factory. He was excited to start his new life. I told him I could help him move if he wanted his own place.
No way, Mom. I'm staying here to help you.
I was surprised by his words. I'd always thought he'd move out eventually, but his words gave me new strength, and I quit my job to focus on taking care of the house. After years of working, being a full-time homemaker was a dream come true. Michael had made that possible for me. As the years passed, Michael worked hard and moved up in the factory. By the time he was 30, he had become a manager. He was as diligent and dedicated as he'd been since his school days, but Tom had taken Michael's success as an excuse to stop working altogether. He started going out every day, leaving me and Michael to fend for ourselves, financially.
I spent all my money. Give me more.
I told him no, but he turned to Michael, who sighed and handed him some cash. It was humiliating to see Tom asking his own son for money. I couldn't let Michael shoulder all the burden, so I found a new part-time job. Tom might as well have been a ghost in the house, but every day with Michael was precious to me. Yet I had one worry. Michael was almost 40, and he had no partner. I wondered if his work and our family situation left him no time to date, so I gently broached the topic. Michael, you're at an age where it's okay to go out and have fun with friends. But his response surprised me.
Actually, there's someone I'd like you to meet.
He looked a little shy as he said it. I felt a mix of happiness and bittersweetness. Soon after, Michael brought her over. Tom was surprisingly at home that day, eager to meet Michael's girlfriend.
I hope she's a beauty.
I couldn't believe he'd say that, but I kept my thoughts to myself. I went to the door, curious to see who Michael had brought. And there she was, a beautiful woman in a wheelchair.
This is Emma. She has a congenital condition that affects her mobility.
Emma greeted us politely, looking a bit nervous. Tom looked surprised at first, but he quickly brightened.
She's gorgeous, Michael. Well done.
Michael blushed as Emma introduced herself formally.
I'm Emma. I may be in a wheelchair, but I'm fully capable of doing anything I set my mind to.
Michael proudly added that Emma was skilled in the kitchen and could handle most tasks independently. Tom seemed satisfied, and I was relieved to meet such a respectful and confident woman. Seeing how happy Michael was, I was sure she'd make him happy. That evening, we all shared a warm meal together, exchanging stories and laughter. Emma explained how she had started working at Michael's factory right after high school. Their relationship had blossomed naturally from their work interactions.
As the eldest son, I want to stay close and take care of you.
Emma chimed in, saying they wanted to live together in a two-family home. I was delighted. I had no reason to say no to such a respectful daughter-in-law. Tom, who depended on Michael financially, didn't object either. After some time, the two were married, and a two-family home was built. Michael and Emma lived on the first floor, while Tom and I were upstairs. Each floor had its own kitchen and bathroom, fully accessible for Emma. When Michael and Emma got married, I made a promise to myself. I would stay out of their lives as much as possible. Michael was no longer just my son. He was Emma's husband. I didn't want to interfere in their relationship. But to my surprise, Emma frequently called me to her floor for help with house chores. She started by complimenting my skills, saying she wanted to learn from me. But as time passed, it became clear she had no intention of handling chores herself. Every chore fell on me, from cooking to cleaning to laundry. I started wondering if her limited mobility prevented her from doing these tasks. But despite my part-time job, I managed it all. One evening, after working overtime, I got home later than usual. I thought maybe Emma had cooked for everyone. I entered the house and noticed a lovely aroma coming from the kitchen. But when I peeked in, I was surprised to see Emma's mother, Molly, cooking instead.
Who leaves their disabled daughter to go out all day?
Her words stunned me. I explained that I'd worked late because of overtime.
It's just a part-time job. That's not even worth it.
I looked at Emma, hoping she'd back me up, but she wore the same disdainful look as her mother.
She's right. My needs should come first.
Emma's tone was dismissive, nothing like how she used to speak. I couldn't stay silent. Emma, if you weren't feeling well, you could have told me, and I'd have come home sooner.
Emma is disabled. You should be cooking for her regardless.
I felt anger and disbelief welling up inside me. I was not their maid. The house had been built with an accessible kitchen so Emma could cook comfortably. But seeing no other option, I apologized, even though it didn't feel fair. Emma wasn't satisfied, though. She took things a step further.
I may be in a wheelchair, but men love me. Michael wanted me so badly, and if you can't respect me, we'll just leave.
Emma then held up a signed divorce paper with only Michael's signature missing.
I keep this as a reminder that I can leave whenever I want.
Her mother clapped in agreement, showing complete support for this threat. Feeling trapped, I retreated to my room, overwhelmed by the reality of Emma's true nature. I thought she was kind, but now she showed herself to be prideful and demanding. Yet I couldn't tell Michael, as I didn't want to ruin his happiness. Tom, meanwhile, lay around, scrolling through his phone without a care in the world. Things only worsened from that day forward. Every morning, I'd get a text from Emma, listing the breakfast items she wanted me to prepare. Each message ended with a reminder to keep quiet so Michael wouldn't know. She was hiding the fact that I was doing everything for her. After Michael left for work, she'd text again with instructions for the cleaning and laundry. I'd hurry to complete her list before heading to my part-time job. Then I'd return in the evening to prepare her dinner, exactly as she specified. Every day was exhausting, with no end in sight. But whenever I tried to relax on the sofa, Tom would appear.
Get off, that's my spot.
How could he, of all people, say that to me? I was fed up, but had no choice but to endure. My only wish was to avoid making Michael unhappy, so I kept silent, never sharing my troubles with him. Then one day Michael brought it up.
Mom, your 65th birthday is coming up. How about we go on a little trip? Anywhere you want.
His words reminded me of my upcoming birthday. I had been too busy to even remember it myself. A spa getaway would be nice.
Sounds perfect. A spa would be good for Emma, too.
I smiled, hiding my worries about Emma. But Michael's excitement made me feel grateful and determined to continue holding on. The day of my birthday arrived, and Michael handed me a brochure.
We're going here tomorrow. I know you've always wanted to go.
Looking at the brochure, I was thrilled. Tom was by my side, grinning.
Finally, you'll be able to relax.
It took everything I had not to react to his words, but I noticed Emma giving a subtle smirk. The next morning, I was packing for the trip when Emma appeared.
I get carsick. Could you get me some medicine before we leave?
At the last minute, I rushed out to buy her medicine. In my hurry, I forgot my phone at home, but I figured it wouldn't be an issue. But by the time I got back, the house was empty. I checked my phone and saw a shocking message. It was a message telling Michael I wasn't feeling well and wouldn't be joining them. I hadn't sent that message. Someone must have pretended to be me. There was only one person who would do that. Emma. Tears streamed down my face as I realized what she had done. Soon after, Michael called.
Why didn't you tell me sooner? We're already on our way, but please rest.
I couldn't bring myself to respond. How could Emma be so cruel? At that moment, I made a decision. A few months passed, and Michael was transferred to a different location for work. With him gone, I was left to deal with Emma on my own. And unsurprisingly, Emma's attitude worsened. She ordered me around constantly, and Tom just laughed at my expense. He even joked that being bossed around would keep my mind sharp. Then one day, Emma fell while trying to get to the bathroom and hurt her back. After that, she mostly stayed in bed, watching TV or playing on her phone. The doctor said it was just a bruise, and she was otherwise healthy. But Emma acted as if she were bedridden.
Maid, have you finished the cleaning and laundry?
She called me maid without a hint of irony. I was at my breaking point. When a class reunion invitation came, I decided to go. I told Emma and Tom about it well in advance, just in case. I finished all the chores before leaving and enjoyed catching up with friends. By the time I got home, It was past 10 p.m., and I entered quietly, not wanting to wake anyone, but I was met with Emma's and her mother's furious faces in the hallway.
Who do you think you are, leaving all day with no regard for the house? How dare you leave my poor daughter alone while you go out?
I stood there, stunned by their accusations. Emma, who had claimed she couldn't even get out of bed, was now sitting in her wheelchair, glaring at me. I'd had enough. I'd been doing all the housework and taking care of Emma without complaint. But now the resentment I'd held inside exploded like a volcano. What are you talking about? I've been doing everything for you, Emma. Sure, you're in a wheelchair, but you're healthy. You can do plenty of things on your own. My outburst left the room in silence. Tom came downstairs looking annoyed.
Mary, calm down. What's all the noise about? You'll disturb the neighbors.
His words only fueled my anger. Emma turned to me fuming.
A retired old woman like you should know her place. If you want to be cut off, fine.
I still worked part-time and didn't rely on retirement money, but Tom and Emma's mother stood by, smirking at my discomfort. I took a deep breath and spoke up. Sure, thank you. And with that, I walked out of the house. I'd finally freed myself. 3 months later, I was waiting for Emma and Tom. Soon enough, Emma appeared with her mother, looking distressed.
How could you keep Michael's illness a secret? We didn't even get to say goodbye.
You should have told us first. We're family.
We were standing outside Michael's memorial service. He had passed away 3 days earlier from an illness he had kept hidden. I looked straight at Emma. Her mother, however, erupted in anger.
I always knew you lacked decency, but this is a new low. Michael was my husband, not yours. You kept this from me on purpose.
She stared at me, furious. Enough was enough. Michael and I didn't tell you because you didn't need to know. Emma smirked, seemingly victorious.
Of course I needed to know. I'm his wife. We need to discuss the inheritance.
Her audacity made my voice rise. Inheritance? You're not getting a single penny.
What? What nonsense. Of course the wife inherits the estate.
Yes, but Emma isn't Michael's wife anymore. The room went silent. Emma laughed, as if I'd lost my mind.
Michael and I are still married. Stop making things up.
I prepared for this moment and took out the divorce papers. Emma, her mother, and Tom squinted at the document. It was a divorce certificate, signed and filed by Michael.
This is ridiculous. I never agreed to a divorce.
I calmly reminded her. You did, though, remember? You left it as a backup plan, in case you ever wanted out. Emma's face turned pale.
This must be a mistake. My daughter wouldn't do such a thing.
I showed them the security footage Michael has set up in the house. Emma and her mother watched, stunned. It showed Emma with another man in our home.
He's just a friend. Why'd you have that video?
Michael had installed security cameras to confirm the truth. Emma fell silent. She had loved Michael, but she had crossed too many lines. Her behavior after the divorce had been unbearable. But when Michael's illness had been revealed, he'd asked for my support. He had wanted Emma to receive nothing after he was gone. He spent his final days peacefully, knowing I was by his side. He'd freed himself from Emma, just as I had from Tom. And as I faced Emma, Tom, and her mother, I knew I'd done the right thing. Michael's legacy would live on in the home we'd created, free of those who had hurt us, and I would carry on, embracing the life my son had left me with strength and gratitude.